Hello and welcome back to 4th Age Guides. Today we are taking a look at the battle prospects for the Chiefdom of Khand. Now, in the campaign video that I did recently for this faction, I neglected to give you a glimpse of a campaign in progress. So that's what I wanted to do here really quickly, just before we get into the custom battle scenario. And this is my latest save point. I'm being attacked by a huge stack of Harad, and you can see the auto-resolve does not think this is going to go too well for me. Actually, I'm not too worried about this. If we see what Harad is bringing in their big army, it's all infantry. They've got a lot of these Swords of Harad, and they've got 3 units of Spearmen of the Serpent. Those are definitely their best troops. They've got a couple units of archers, which might be a problem, but the rest of it is just these low-tier footmen and plainsmen skirmishers and such. My own force, as you can tell, is fairly heavy on horse archers, and I've got lots of archers of my own. I've got a couple of steppe archers here, the foot steppe archers, and then 3 units of Parchereb tribesmen. They are from Parchereb, as you might be able to infer from the name. These are the spear and bow units that I mentioned in the last video. I've also got a mercenary unit of these sweating skirmishers, an excellent unit causing fear, and the way to kill Mumakil, if you want to know. And I also have a couple units of Variag axemen, as well as a bodyguard, dragon guard unit leading the army. I'm not really worried about this, but it does point out the fact that auto-resolve is not on your side when you're playing a horse archer faction. I think that's just something undeniable. I'm just going to auto-calc this just so I can get past this, and we'll cruise around the campaign map for a few minutes and talk about what I did here and why I would not recommend it unless you're up for something a little more challenging. So in the campaign video, I recommended heading north early and taking these settlements of Ruin, basically backstabbing them as soon as you felt comfortable with it, and heading up towards their capital city up here, and then proceeding west and taking Nirn out. And I still would recommend that. I think that's much the easier option in a lot of ways. But I didn't do that. I wanted to try something different here. So what I did instead was I waited for Adunabar to attack Amryn Magor, and eventually they took it. It rebelled. They came back, and then I hit them because their army was weaker then. And what that did was that it forced Rune to drop their alliance with Adunabar, and you can see that that they are no longer allied with Adunabar. That kept me allied with Rune until just now. And what you saw there was them betraying me. And really what I think triggered them to attack me this time was a bit of diplomacy that I did. So I allied with North Rune, who was at war with Rune. Something along those lines. As soon as I allied with that faction that was fighting with them, they turned on me. They turned and marched all their armies south in righteous fury, and you can see they've besieged me here. Again, I'm not too worried about this fight. I've got a decent number of horse archers here. It looks like 6 or 8 of them, mixed in with a few infantry and a few foot archers, and that's a pretty decent composition for Khand. If you go completely horse archers, then you're going to have a hard time containing the enemy. You do want at least a token infantry line. So even if it's just a couple units of these axemen and some nomadic watchmen, a couple units of archers, I think I've got 3 foot archers here, that's going to be something that will make the army go towards you, and then you can send your horse archers around into the flanks. So that's broadly what I'd recommend. While I was just progressing and not doing anything in the north, instead I did take these 2 Khandian settlements early. Far Harad attacked me, so I was able to attack them and fairly easily take their capital. They're all bottled up over here now. I took Parchereb and threatened Karasagar, and took Karenbad pretty early. This is, of course, a good target, as I mentioned in that campaign video. It's got stone walls and a chief city attribute so that you can build and train everything out of here. My army composition in this stack is very different. It's got some more elite units that you start with in the campaign, including Variag warriors, archers of Khand, and horse archers of Khand. I threw a couple family members in, and we got fewer horse archers overall because I took quite a few losses. So I've had to supplement this army with mercenaries. Fortunately, that's been sufficient to hold it off. And all this time, Harad really has not been interested in taking Karenbad. They've been more interested in protecting Karasagar, which, if I were to have fought out that battle myself, I really think I would have won it and probably taken the city. But let's go to the custom battle here. and we can take a look at how that went. So this is a Khand versus Harad battle, and this is pretty representative of what you can expect when you're fighting Harad. And Harad is going to be an enemy of Khand. I don't see how you can avoid fighting them. So this is a pretty fair matchup, I think. So I've brought, we'll let the army get into formation here. I've brought something that is fairly similar in terms of composition to what you've seen. I've got 10 units of the Steppe Outriders, so that's half my army. I've got a couple units of these more elite Horse Archers of Khand. We'll just pause it here so we can take a look at them. Horse Archers of Khand right here. Now remember, these are spear units as well as archers. So I'd like to keep them near the main enemy line, near the main infantry line, so that I can use them to charge in when enemies are occupied with my with my foot troops, so they can get that spear lance bonus. They're a little bit slower than the Steppe Outriders as well, and I don't want to risk them getting shot down or caught out far from support, so I like to leave them back a little bit, and they can sort of move over to the flanks when the enemy gets a bit closer. In terms of my infantry, I've got a couple units of Steppe Archers. These are just good, sort of cheap infantry, good options for the front lines, although the Archers of Khand might be a better option for the front line depending on what you're facing. You know, if you're familiar with this game, that the AI loves to charge archers. So, and if you've been watching any of my Let's Plays, you know that I'm not the best at doing anything to prevent that. I will just leave my archers out in the front, the enemy will charge them, I will lose a bunch of archers. But if I were to be facing a lot of cavalry, I would probably have these guys more out towards the front. If I thought that a couple of cavalry units were going to charge, because these Archers of Khand have spears as a backup weapon. So they're going to be more resilient. As you can tell, they're better armored anyway than the Steppe equivalent. And so these guys might make a better front line. The problem is, of course, they're a smaller unit size at 51 men than these guys at 70. And so if there's a lot of enemy archers, these guys are going to take losses, and those losses are going to be more proportionally problematic than they will for the Steppe archers. In the front line of infantry, I've only got 3 dedicated melee troops here. These are the Variag warriors up close, 2-handed axemen, good armor. But the problem here is Khand does not have a lot of shield wall type units. They don't have a lot of units that can just stand there and slug it out in a melee. So these guys want to be charging, preferably into the flanks of an enemy that's already engaged. Here I don't have the infantry line to really make that happen, and you'll see that I struggle quite a bit with them, and we take a lot of losses. Here we've got Variag Axemen. These are your tier 2 melee infantry. Pretty solid. No special abilities or anything, but they're pretty decent, and they're going to do what I need them to do in this battle. Backing them up, I've got some Variag Riders, which are some dedicated melee cav. They've got lances, so that makes them good on the charge, as are these Dragon Guard. Now, the Dragon Guard also have maces as a secondary weapon, so they're a very versatile unit, and they cause fear because this cataphract unit is a fear-causing thing. Another cataphract type unit that also causes fear are the Dragon Shield Riders, another unit of horse archers with lances as well as a backup weapon. So you can tell by the heavy armor they're wearing that these guys are not going to be quick either, and so like the Horse Archers of Khand, I like to leave them around my infantry line, and they can be supported by the other cavalry or the infantry and just sort of help out. Now, on the flanks is where I've got my Steppe Outriders. Oh, I guess I've got not 10, but 8 units of them. So we've got 8 units of these Steppe Outriders, and I've lately been very fond of this column formation rather than laying sort of a long line of them and then marching them up and around. So you can see I've got these 2 columns, and I'm just running them to the flanks of the enemy. Now, in a defensive campaign or a defensive battle, this is where you're going to get a ton of use out of these guys, because the enemy can't shoot at you while they're marching unless they are horse archers or some kind of skirmish cavalry. Harad does have horse archers in its bodyguard unit, the Serpent Black, But otherwise, that's it. So I'm basically able to shoot into the sides of this formation with impunity. But notice the difference here. So this is the shielded side that I'm shooting into, and we're taking some losses here. But same unit over here, absolutely massacred because it's getting hit from the non-shielded side. So positioning really does matter, and you can see what I'm doing as the enemy marches forward is I'm trying to work these guys around to the back, but also not leave them open to be charged by these Scarlet Shields, which are a very dangerous unit. Fast, strong, and good in the charge and good in melee. So I'm trying to get them around behind so that we can really focus on them. But I'm having a bit of a hard time making headway, partly because we're shooting from the left side, but also because the AI is actually doing some smart stuff here. They've stopped their march. Their archers are now stopped and facing my horse archers, and this is really not a good situation for me because we're going to take a lot of losses. And they're also bringing skirmishers over, and skirmishers are difficult to deal with when you're playing a horse archer faction because you've got all this micromanaging to do. And what will often happen is the skirmishers can get in just close enough to not push your guys away, so that I'm having to do this, right? Like, I'm not relying on the AI's skirmish ability here. I'm having to pull them back myself. And if I didn't notice that, they would get close enough and get a few throws in, and they'd be devastating. You can see how lightly armed my step outriders are. So here we've got the bodyguard chasing me. That's really what I want. We're going to eventually shoot him down. But I'm trying to finally deal with these archers, the red sand archers. But even though they are very lightly armored, we're not making any headway. Of course, the step outriders are not the best unit for this. But it was an attempt to try to get them to stop firing at me, and it did not succeed. We will get them in a little bit. The enemy general is running away over there, and he'll be shot down pretty soon. Otherwise, I'm just trying to stay away from the skirmishers, and we've got the cavalry getting close to my right side, so my dragon shield riders are able to put a stop to that. And you can see, I think they will take their lances out here eventually. One of the tricks with horse archers that also use a secondary weapon, a melee weapon, is getting them to use that melee weapon. So what I've found that I have to do is take them off fire at will, and then charge them in. But you can see I don't get a lot of good charges in this fight. This was probably the best charge I ever pull off, and it's against those Swords of Harad, which are such a threat because they can just throw those javelins. But when it comes to these Horse Archers of Khand, I'm not going to get like any good charges in. I just don't take the time to line up the charges because I've got to always keep an eye on everything in the battlefield. So I did very well with the initial charge of the Variag warriors. I got my axemen out, and when you're facing these Swords of Harad, you do kind of want to rush them. Otherwise, they're just going to stand and throw spears at you and do a lot of damage. But the problem is here. So my Variag warriors don't get a charge in on these guys, and we're going to be taking a ton of losses. Look at that. It's just absolutely sickening. We're also getting hit from over here. So we lost over half of our men just there. At some point, I do decide to throw in my archers of Khand, and I think they're running forward at this point to at least pin some of these guys so I can hope to charge them in an effective way. But it's going to come down not only to my melee troops, but also to my horse archers, my step outriders, and using them in a melee capacity, which is, again, not ideal, but something you will have to do as Khand. So here the horse archers of Khand have managed to rout that one unit, but it took a lot. Now that the general is gone, I've got a bit better chances of getting rid of these tougher units, the Spearmen of the Serpent. But even so, we're taking lots of losses with our bodyguard and our other cavalry. Over here, Harad, you'll see them actually train these in the campaign, which is kind of alarming. These Umbar Guard are a quite solid unit. But like a lot of Harad's troops, once the general is gone, it's fairly easy to rout them. So you obviously want to make general sniping your first priority. And with Khand, that is definitely something that you can accomplish, just surrounding them with your horse archers. And since Harad's generals are going to be those Serpent Black, which are of themselves horse archers, they're going to be a bit of a softer target than a unit, say, that has shields and melee type equipment. So here I think we've got the last charge, and before we even manage to do that, you can see the umbar guard routing. So it's a very messy victory here, and I lost a lot more units than I should have, but that is just a function of trying to pay attention to a lot of different places at the same time. Had I had this to do over, what would I have done differently? Well, I probably paid a bit more attention to my infantry line. Of course, it's easy to say that, hard to do in practice. But in any case, I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to getting into the next guide video. I think we're going to be doing Dale next. But keep an eye out for that, and stay tuned for other guides or other videos to do with the 4th Age. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.